The Stream is a spiritual community and a nonprofit organization, educational corporation actually. And we are a community that is dedicated to leading a guided life. This has been a guided community. It started in 1983 when God said, Beth, call your work. I was doing counseling work. Call your work the Stream. And I said, what are you talking about? I mean, it was me doing counseling. He said, call it the Stream. And I said, what is the Stream? And God said, the Stream is the process of becoming who you already are. When I say that the guidance came to me because of being of service, it was the plan of the universe that whatever gifts I had were to be used, because the day that I had my psychic awakening, I did my first counseling session. Quite by accident. I called someone and said I had the wildest experience. I could see a past life. And she said, oh, can you do that for me? And I said, sure, come on over. And that was the beginning of what you see today. It wasn't in my head, guys. It was part of a larger plan. How wonderful it is to feel part of something greater than ourselves and to watch that unfold. And the next step was that I was calling those little counseling sessions the Stream, and before you knew it, with no money whatsoever, no support on the outside, no health. I was living in this big house in Los Angeles, and it was full of people. And we had interns, and I was training people. And some of you were there, because that was what was meant to be. And then there were times when it was meant to stop, and I had to go inside. And I was all by myself in the forest, and that was all part of it. And here I am today. And this community was built on guidance. There is a book called Living with Reality that I started writing in the middle of the night. At 2 a.m. I was awakened, and I heard these words, write these words down. And I did. Living with Reality. 9 platforms for becoming ourselves is what I called it then. And I started writing these steps. And I thought, what is this? And God said, don't worry, I'll tell you in the morning. And that book, I was writing that book before there was an organization, because the Stream had dissolved, the original one from 1983, and we had gone through we did the Triple I Foundation, we did all kinds of stuff. They stopped, they started. It was all very, looked very messy, as guidance is messy. All evolving. And the book started coming out of me. Then it took me 9 years to write it. Usually books just come out. This one started coming out, and it set the platforms and the foundation for a community to live by. And it wasn't my idea. I didn't even know there was going to be a community. I didn't know that I was going to write a book. I didn't know that we needed spiritual principles. I didn't know anything, beyond the typical spiritual principles. And the book started writing, and the people started reading it, and then we started doing workshops, and the community started to grow around principles, around practices, around something that someone else can read and use. And I am so pleased that we're going to be doing videos where I can pass on to people things that they can use forever until they become obsolete and something better comes along. But this is, I like to say that the Stream is a community that God built, because all the principles and practices were laid out for us before we even knew that we needed them, as Christopher likes to say. Because there wasn't anybody here at the time that I started writing this. I had come back from Oregon. I'd been living in the forest. And so it grew. And I saw over the years that people were reading this book and understanding and practicing and talking about the concepts and using the practices. I thought, what is happening here? So this community was built by God. It was an idea in God's mind, not in my mind. And I'd like to invite those of you who care to share if you feel called and guided, some brief experience of what it means to you to lead a guided life and the magic of it.
What I was just thinking about was one of the things I appreciate most about the guided life and checking in with higher consciousness to make decisions is that I get access to a bigger perspective than I have on my own, which sounds so obvious, but it's like in my day-to-day life I typically always think that I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm kind of like a know-it-all, and when I'm not connected, I'm just kind of going, thinking that I know what to do next. And when I'm able to stop and check in, I'm able to see options that I did not even know were there, really, because they're outside of maybe what I even know as an option sometimes in my conscious mind. I mean, sometimes I'm a teacher and I'll be stuck on what should I teach the next day. And I've been teaching for 10 years, so I have like a whole shelf of things to choose from. And, I'm just not sure sometimes. And when I go through that process, I'll and if I'm going no, and then sometimes I have to just sit and wait, for the idea to come, and it might not come in that moment, but it'll be later on that day. Something will just like pop into my mind, and it's something really I would not have thought of, or I'll be talking to someone else, and they'll have an idea, and so it just feels like my life gets bigger than it was before, so that's a wonderful thing. Other areas, I hope this isn't too simple, but shopping, like when I'm shopping for clothes, sometimes I'll be in the store and there's, I'm trying something on, and one time this happened, and it didn't seem right. It wasn't like the right pants, and I thought, okay, should I buy them? But I kind of wanted to buy them because they seemed like it was as good as it was going to get. And but I checked in, and it was like, no, you're not supposed to buy these. And then I walked out of the store and felt guided to go right across the street, and there were the right pants there. Yeah. And I felt, it sounds so simple, but I was really struck in that moment about that teaching that was just like, you don't know. There might be something around the corner that's better that you just can't see in this moment. And having the guidance really helps me to remember that, and helps me relax into that process.
That really helps a lot with husbands. Yes. Don't buy the wrong one because you're anxious, because there might be a better one around the corner.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
What's really been highlighted the most strongly, in some ways, most concretely for me, has been the choice of what to eat. My ego wants the gratification. When I first met you and I became involved with you and the community, I did a intuitive process with Helen, our spiritual director, on what would be the right foods for me to eat and not to eat. And it was a tough process for me, because a lot of things were my favorites on the list. I loved mocha cappuccino, but the higher guidance was, no, don't take in sugar, don't take in cow dairy, and certainly don't take in caffeine. That was just for starters, okay? And then we kept fine-tuning it, because we do what's called a food plan, where you just go through a whole bunch of possible foods. And even down to chicken, yes. Dark meat, no. White meat, yes. Shellfish, no. No shrimp, no shrimp. What do you mean, no shrimp? I love shrimp. And I love sugar. I love sweets. What was interesting is that when I first started doing that, I was a little on the pudgy side, you might say. I weighed about 185. And the weight just melted away from me over a period of several months. I lost 40 pounds. And this was down to a weight that I had not had since I was 19 years old. In other words, my body had been out of balance since 19. So I'd say that this higher guidance path really is for my highest good, and is for my greater well-being. And so, to me, that it is magical. It really works. It's tangible. It works. It feels good, ultimately. More so than ego gratification, because it feels whole.
So this has to do with things, and there's this way of, when I go into my mind and I start thinking about things that I want, and I have this relationship to them, they're going to make me happy. And I'm using a specific example because I wanted to put a stereo system in the bedroom to go with the TV, and like I really need that. And I get off in that idea about, wow, and I start imagining the possibilities and doing this and doing that, and then I hate in those situations checking in because I'm not going to get always what I think I want. So I checked in and it was like, no. And I was like, well, my attention will go back to that continually. Oh, you'll start thinking about the possibilities of having this thing, and this is going to make you, and you project your emotions on it, and you'll be able to turn the music. None of this stuff will probably ever happen, but it sure sounds good in my mind. And and I see it, I check in, it's like, no, don't do that. But so I see checking in can be kind of a pain in the ass because you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah.
And so that's one way. And there's certain things where I give into it. And I go, well, the hell with it. And I get it. And then it's like, well, what did you get this for? So that's one of the things I see because I'm going through that process now with the bedroom. So that's just a minor way of checking in. But
Thank you. It's a great story.
One of the main things of uncertainty that happens for me is with my husband, and as I'm constantly triggered to fix him and get him in better shape and boister him up and what have you. And we had an incident where he was triggered. It was obvious. I would normally have plowed through, but I didn't, and I stopped. I shut up, like you were talking about. I just got to shut up, so I did. And then the next morning I was guided to write an email, and I wrote it, and it came out of me like auto writing kind of. And I'd never done that before, and it was the right communication. I felt like I was writing almost from his heart. And when he read it, he said it was exactly right for him.
Oh.
Now that's one I want to keep reminding myself
That's magic.
is available because I let myself be guided and I don't try to be the one to fix the problem. Thank you.
So mine follows on that theme.
And what is your name?
My name is Chris.
Just in case people think we hired actors for this.
You're readily apparent I am not a professional actor. My sort of way of responding to life before I started working with the Streaming with Beth was to be very analytical and to look at everything from a cost-benefit analysis and to do a lot of spreadsheets and to try to hold on to the spreadsheets to make them work. So, it's been a long process to try to peel that way of thinking from me, but in addition to checking in, I just want to also share about how it's been magical for me to learn how to embrace life as a process of evolution. And we are facing another challenge, financial challenge, with a business that my husband and I own, and we were in a session with Beth and James on Friday, and I couldn't connect to any feelings of compassion or empathy for the struggle that my partner's going through around it, and I didn't feel any. Just felt like, the numbers tell you what to do, and it's clear we should be out of it. And then we met with a CPA yesterday, and he told us that. I mean, that wasn't even why we were meeting with him, and he told us that. So I was convinced now we had the answer. And then somewhere in the middle of hearing Beth and James supporting us to talk about our emotions and hearing my husband's pain, finally this morning I got in touch with my own pain, that I really love this store. I love the experience of being around people. It's a hardware store. I love the experience of being around people who don't have a lot of money. Who drive up in old cars and who, can spend $8 to buy a part to fix a piece that's about to fall apart. And I work in an environment where people have a lot of money and they spend a lot of money. They spend a lot of money on their personal lives, and they spend a lot of money at work. So, but I just want to believe, that the CPA, I don't, no disrespect to CPAs in the audience, but that, that analytical, or insurance people, which I am, that analytical cost-benefit analysis of thinking, and that what really matters is my security, and how much money I have in the bank, and whether or not I've saved enough for retirement, and, whether or not I got screwed on that last deal, whatever that deal was, that way of thinking is just not sustainable. And Beth was talking about how she feels on the inside, and that's what's changed for me.
Thanks.
I'm Helen, and I follow Chris probably because I'm probably going to cry through my whole thing too. I've had so many guided experiences over the years. I've been with the Stream and Beth pretty much since the beginning, and I've moved here and there to be nearer her when everybody told me I was crazy. Either you'll never meet a man by moving there, or you'll never sell your house that you're continuing to own while you buy this new house. But I felt guided and I did it. And, it just happens that the person that I married from there was a kind of a disaster, but that was not guidance. That was being guided, like she said, by something else, which we won't get into. But the move was the right thing. And of course, there was more research by the marriage. When I moved here, I felt like, I'm moving away from everything I know. I'm moving away from my business. I'm an intuitive counselor, and I had a wonderful, thriving business in Ramona, and moving here, my house was 3 times as expensive, and I made half as much money. But I felt guided to do it. And then my mother died and left me just enough money to get by until I miraculously met my husband, whom I'm married to now, which I would not have met if I'd stayed in Ramona, because we met on eHarmony, and this was exactly at the mileage limit of his search. I mean, it's just, all of it is so unbelievable. So I've had some wonderful and fun and rewarding things. And then the thing that I'm being guided by right now is that my daughter's a drug addict. And the guidance is saving my life. Whether it saves her life or not, I don't know. But yesterday, my daughter relapsed yesterday, and she came with us somewhere, and we had to say, we realize that you're using me. That is pretty funny. Someone would show up with their pupils like pinpoints and think we're not going to notice. Anyway, and Lynn said, my sister said, you can stay with me tonight. And I said, no, I don't need to stay. I want to go home, be with my dog, be in my home. And she said, can you sleep? And I said, yeah, I can sleep. And she said, wow, that's amazing. And I said, because I have some sense of being guided, this whole thing is being guided. And because I talked to Beth, of course, and she helped. She is often my higher consciousness when I don't have any. And she said, don't make her your life. Whether she lives or dies, it's going to be the right thing. And so, I just keep remembering that guidance. And that guidance gets me through things that are unbelievably hard. And I have some peace. I was so glad to have this spiritual service this morning to come to feel the support and the love and the guidance so that I can continue to feel peaceful to the best of my ability every moment of every day.
One of our members has a form of leukemia called AML, and I was giving her injections every day. And I got a call from my niece that my sister needed me. who lives in Orange County. And I didn't know what to do because I wouldn't be there to give my friend her shot. So I checked in. Oh my God, what a concept. And I got that I was supposed to go, but I couldn't reach my friend. And all the way there, 62 miles, I fretted, my ego went on, and I was thinking, how was I going to get my sister in the car to come back here to give her the shot, and on and on and on. And then I pulled over and called Lynn, and Lynn said, well, I got a text from her that she doesn't need her shot anymore.
Oh my God.
So Erica didn't need her injection, and I said, oh my God. So that really felt very peaceful and good. And then because on the way up I'm arguing with God that He gave me the wrong answer. So I know it works if I choose to work it, and I just wanted to share that piece of magic.
It's a great story.
Is that good? Oh, I'm clear now why I follow Bobby, because I've been sitting over there all morning like, am I supposed to share? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Roz. But I follow Bobby because I have definitely been questioning God's ability to truly be guiding me. And particularly, I think it's because I have if I'm following the guidance, then that means it should be happy and joyful. And ultimately, it's going to keep me from having to be in the pain. And that's not what's so. Many of you know, I recently did an audition for a musical competition show, and I didn't make it. And it ultimately sent me into this spiral that I truly wondered if I would ever actually recover from. But it was guided, checked in, got support, did all these things. And of course I'm like, what the hell? Why send me through all this to have all this pain? Like, really, you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's like, that's honestly how I felt. And that's the part of me that really just doesn't want to have to deal with the pain. And has spent much of my life trying to avoid as much pain as I can, because I've seen so much of it, and unlike anybody else probably in this room. But part of leading the guided life that I'm discovering more and more is that it's not going to alleviate the pain. But what it does give us is the ability to find the support that we need, and that there can be peace and relaxation as we move through the pain. We can find that, and we can find new parts of ourselves, which is ultimately what happened through the entire process. So the idea or the fallacy or fantasy that evolution is painless is clearly not true. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. Yeah.
I've loved the sharings, the very many different ways that we've experienced the magic. From the miracles of the pants showing up across the street, to the miracle of being able to live through pain without going through to our old patterns. And those are the ways that we experience the miracles for ourselves. But there is another level to guidance, which is that it's not just for my highest good, but it is bringing divine consciousness and divine energy onto the planet that is part of an evolution that is greater than us. The ability to connect to higher consciousness is an opening for us to connect to that greater intelligence, that greater power, that greater plan, some people would call it, of the process of evolution itself, the healing of God, however we want to describe that. That we are the cells in the body of God, the organism of the whole. And that sometimes this cell will die and sometimes that cell will die. But it's all being guided by some intelligence that is bringing evolution to the whole. And we're just playing our part. We cannot always know. I loved your story, Bobby, about the conflict you had gone through. And you got to have the privilege and the joy of knowing why you were sent to do that. That you knew you were supposed to do it, it just riled everything in you. And yet you got the answer, which was that your friend didn't need you to give you the shot that day, give her the shot that day. But much of what we do, we'll never know. Because the divine plan, the evolution of consciousness is beyond our capacity to understand, even on a general level, much less on a specific level. There have been times when I was guided to buy something at a certain price and I knew I could buy it cheaper somewhere else. And then I said to myself, how do I know that that salesperson didn't need that money for their child that's going through some hideous medical situation for which they don't have enough insurance? How do I know? Or how do I know that that person didn't need an emotional boost that day? Or that that person didn't need the money so they could go out and drink so that they could finally hit bottom and join Alcoholics Anonymous? I'll never know. I'll never know the impact of anything that I do, and you will never know the impact of what you do. So much of what we do ripples into the ages, in the future. That woman you helped who had that baby whose child ended up being the godparent of the person who finds the cure for cancer. The world is vast. The universe is vaster. And we are such a small part. To lead a guided life allows us to be the agent of the universe. When we become neutral and become more able to consciously cooperate with the consciousness that guides us, we can become the hands of God, even when we don't know it and when we don't know why. It gives meaning to our suffering, to our struggles, and brings grace to our lives.